clear up our roller rolls. They are going to get the Missouri data shortly, and you can do it from the comfort of your home on your own computer and start looking at voter rolls. Clean it up. So I'm giving you Erin Anderson from True the Vote.
Thanks, Frida. As Frida said, I'm Erin Anderson with True the Vote out of Houston, Texas. That is where our organization is based, where we started in Harris County, the third largest county in the United States, which has quite a few issues, as we discovered, and what we learned at the polls there in Harris County. We thought, no, we'll just be election workers, we'll do our civic duty, it'll be a great thing, we'll go home, and come next November we'll do it again. But what we were able to observe told us there was more problems than we thought and more work needed. So what we were able to do in Harris County and the model we developed, the tools we developed to help ensure election integrity there in Harris County, we decided to start sharing out with the rest of the country so everybody else didn't have to reinvent the wheel. So we're now in over 30 states, including Missouri here, where we do have a great state leader who is here today, John Putnam. So you probably know John. So we have some leadership here. Frida heads up our St. Louis County effort. So we're going to talk a little bit about what True the Vote is. I'm going to see if I can, I'm not good at this technical stuff, so I'm just going to hope that it all works like we expect. I'm going to show you just a brief 4-minute video, this little introduction into True the Vote, and what we do, what the problems are nationwide. Then I'm going to go through kind of the two major things of our program, which as we hinted is cleaning up voter registration rolls. We have a software system that we developed to help volunteers do that from the comfort of their own home, and also our program to help train and place election workers and poll watchers on election day, which is coming up. So let's see if this magically will work. There it goes. I don't know how the volume is. I can only hear it out of my computer. You guys probably can hear it.
All right, mic closer to it. Sorry.
We are all highly technical.
Everybody knows how they sound?
We thought we checked it out yesterday.
Here comes our star.
Let Adam move back.
Well,
It needs to be able to
So we have picture and sound at the same time. I'm not going to touch it because I'll make it worse. But what we're going to see is our founder, Catherine Engelbrecht, and some of the people that we've been fortunate to have worked with us on our cause, people like Jay Christian Adams, the former DOJ voting section attorney. He was the whistleblower on the DOJ, and John Fine, author of Stealing Elections, Pat Cadell, who came to our national summit in April. So Republican, Democrat, it's not a partisan issue. Fairness of elections and honest outcomes are what every honest person should be interested in, right? So we always question why anybody is resistant to election integrity measures unless the conclusion is perhaps they don't want an honest outcome.
try it again. Just see if it.
So I'm saying the computer is recognizing that this is thing, so it's turning on the speakers, but it doesn't actually do anything on the sound.
Well, maybe you won't hear these people.
Try holding
That's on our
the mic.
website, by the way.
Try holding the mic next to the speaker. That's your last resort.
Right, I'm touching something electronic, so
This is exactly what we need.
Push the volume on the sound system.
There we go. Yeah.
We'll get there.
That sounds like.
All right, let's just put the microphone.
There is no statistical proof that vote fraud is the big concern in this country. Attorney General.
Yeah, why don't you restart it?
Yeah, okay, I just want to make sure that's here.
Every vote counts.
We all have one vote, and it should matter, and it should count.
And when you have someone else that's illegally voting, that dilutes my one vote.
When that happens, they're not stealing votes. They're stealing something far more. Elections turn out not the way they should have turned out. Sunland Park, New Mexico. The city they say that was stolen by voter fraud. You have a fundamental problem with democracy.
What does that say about our republic? How then do you find your voice?
What I want is the winner to win. I want it to be elected with honest votes of people. I do not want it stolen.
Because if we don't have confidence that people who govern us, that they're freely and fairly, what can we listen to?
If our elections are not truly fair, we are not truly fair.
Voters should be concerned about any elected official who thinks this is not an issue.
There is no statistical proof that vote fraud is a big concern in this country. Attorney General Erin voted in the D.C. primary. One day, voter fraud hardly ever occurs.
The great fraud is that we have been told that this is a serious problem.
People who say there's no problem are living in the wrong world. They live in Never Never Land.
It's time we call their bluff. I've seen it with my own eyes. I put the evidence up in federal court.
In the last 10 years, there have been prosecutions or convictions of vote fraud in 46 states.
We have examples of election officials all over the country, not just voters, election officials committing voter fraud.
We found there are a dozen states where we have more people on the voting rolls than actually are eligible to vote. These are people off, I think people who lay off.
Ohio State's Attorney General saying more than 900 of the voters in the recent elections were actually dead people.
All you need is one election, and they can remake the nation.
Trusting politicians to guard your liberty is like trusting a dog to guard your lunch.
You can't expect government to stop itself.
Shame on us. Shame on us as a nation to let a handful of bureaucrats dictate the future of our country.
We've got to take the responsibility back as citizens to verify that our elections are fair.
It's something that I've never seen before, where people are standing up and saying enough is enough.
This isn't the government coming in and doing something.
We are, by definition, supposed to be. The government, we are supposed to be.
Mainstream Americans who have never been involved in politics.
We've all sort of linked shields and we're walking forward in this movement to ensure that our elections are conducted with honor, with integrity.
We come with one big voice. We come to tell them that the vote will be true.
True to vote is the first line of defense for free and fair elections.
Monitor elections, look for voter fraud, check the voter rolls. All these things that private citizens can do because their government isn't.
Observation changes behavior. This is our opportunity to get out there and to stop this process.
Simply being in the polling place on election day instead of on your couch watching on TV makes a huge difference.
True to Vote is a citizen-led effort to ensure free and fair elections for everyone.
What goes beyond race, goes beyond party, goes beyond ideology. Black, white, Latino, it doesn't matter. As long as you care about America and free and fair elections, we want you to get involved.
You just can't show up in November to help protect the elections. You need to start doing it now.
How does one get involved? You just start. You go to truethevote.org and you sign up. It's amazing how often the difference between success and failures is just the reluctance to take that first step. We need to remember that our vote is sacred. People fought and died to give us our vote. Don't think that it can't be taken away. Don't think that it can't be lost. We owe this to our children, to our grandchildren, and all is not lost.
Well, thank you. you very much. It's been great being here. So that kind of nutshells what we do. And I'm going to expand on that a little bit with a PowerPoint presentation and discussion. So I will review kind of a little bit again what is True the Vote. I did give you a few little handouts. It's just our little standard postcard. It gives you the information. If you go to www.truethevote.org, right on that homepage you're going to find that video. So if you want to look at it again, if you want to show it to some people at home, if you want to show it in a group, hopefully you'll be able to use your computer better than I could, and you can click on it and you can show that. Really, again, gives a very 4 minutes, kind of really gives the overview of why we do what we do. I'm going to try to give you a little more specifics on how you do it. You heard Catherine say, take that first step. I'll show you what that first step can be here in Missouri. Actually, again, I'm going to focus on a couple of steps, the checking the voter rolls and the working at the polls on Election Day. And who called when Anita Moncrief, she's a good friend of ours too, an Acorn whistleblower, so she knows all the inside skinny on how Acorn operated because she was on the inside. And when she realized that it was a corrupt system, she stepped out and blew the whistle on them. But she said, observation changes behavior. And so that is the key to being in the polls on Election Day. So we'll talk more about that. The little orange sheet is the quickie form. Who is True the Vote? As Catherine Engelbrecht said, citizen volunteers, developed by citizen volunteers, again, based in Harris County, Texas, and for citizen volunteers. So we want to equip other people to do what we did. So we're kind of going to share the model that we use, share the tools that we developed, including a lot of online training, because we want to inspire people to get involved. Again, as Catherine said, we, the people, are supposed to be operating our elections. We can't leave it to other people and expect it to be run properly and done fairly. So we are supposed to be in there manning the polling locations and keeping our eyes on to make sure everything is honest. So that's what we do. So we want to be involved at every stage of the electoral process, not just on Election Day. We want to help with registration. We want to make sure those rolls are clean. Afterwards, if there's problems with our election code in our state, we want to work to make those changes. So we actually have another piece, legislative advocacy piece. I'm not really going to focus on that today. With the elections coming up quickly, that's really where our attention is right now. But it's a year-round, ongoing process, not just Election Day. I think we want to protect the rights of all legitimate voters, whatever your party affiliation. Again, it's not a partisan effort. It's an integrity issue. We want every vote to count. We say all eligible voters and only eligible voters casting one vote for the candidate of their choice. And then we get the outcome we get is true and honest. So why now? Why are we jumping into this? Well, some of the problems that we saw in Harris County and that we learned are a problem across the country. Under-supported polling locations, just getting people to step forward and man those polling locations. And what happens if your polling location is understaffed? We're not even getting into areas of fraud or misconduct. It's just hard. You get chaos at the polling location if you're understaffed and the lines are long and you're trying to process more people than you have the staff to do. So just getting people to step forward and work that day. Remember, election workers are actually paid staff hired by the county to work that day. We've seen inefficient processes. Again, people, maybe they get people in, but they're not well trained, or they've been doing it for 30 years. Who has a polling location and it's the same people over and over? And God love them because they come out and somebody's got to do it. And so we're like, thank goodness they came back again this year because now I don't have to do it. But they're sometimes operating on procedures that were in place 20, 30 years ago when they started. And when you mention perhaps that there's some new things going on, they're like, oh, we've always done it this way, it's fine. So again, before we even get into shenanigans, just inefficiencies because of understaffing or poor training, inconsequential penalties when there is fraud. So a lot of times there's such minor penalties that prosecutors don't go after them. So the left can continue to say, there were no cases of fraud prosecuted, it doesn't exist. Well, sometimes the prosecutors don't go after it because the penalties are low. Or when we raise the penalties, they don't apply them. Because they're like, okay, it's going to be 100 years in prison if you do this. You know? And they're like, oh, well, we don't really want to impose such a harsh penalty. We'll just let them off with a warning this time. So we're not seeing prosecutions when things do take place. And there are systematic efforts in place to subvert the vote. There are fraudsters out there with a strategy. And if you're a fraudster, where's your easiest target? An understaffed, poorly trained polling location where you know there's going to be a lot of chaos. So, Racine, Wisconsin, anyone? Where did they all go? They all bust into the same polling locations. They'd have long lines, big crowds, people in a hurry, not following procedures. That's exactly what happened. They weren't following the procedures, but the GOP said, oh, let it ride, it's all good. You know, they didn't mean anything by it, so I'm sure it was all fine. So this is why you need well-trained people, honest people, well-staffed polling locations, and we need those voter rolls to be accurate as well. We don't even get into Wisconsin and their same-day registration. That is, you know, then your registration list is out the window because you can just walk in and get on it. And when they figure out later that you shouldn't have been, well, it's already been cast and counted. So again, election integrity, it's not politics, it's principle. Whatever your party affiliation, or if you have no affiliation, you know, each legitimate voter's vote should count. People who are not eligible to vote or not eligible in a certain location, their vote should not count. Voter integrity is not about suppressing the vote or preventing eligible people from voting. But if you live in Illinois, for example, should you be voting in Wisconsin? No. This is what they're saying, well, you just don't want people to vote. Well, we don't want ineligible people to vote. There's a big, big difference. We don't want people voting in multiple locations. We don't want people who passed away last year still casting a vote from the beyond. Strangely, there are people who think they're doing some favor. You know, like, I know Betty Sue would have wanted me to vote this way for her. And yet, it's just not right. So even with the best intentions, these things skew the results, and we don't get honest, true results for our elections. So here's what we do at True the Vote. Here's what we started doing. Again, just as citizen volunteers, nonpartisan. We started from a Tea Party group thinking we're going to get involved. This is a great nonpartisan activity, and it is. It's a great civics lesson for the kids. Y'all have a big program here about getting the high school kids involved. Why somebody needs to replace that older generation of election workers. You can take it into your churches because it's nonpartisan. It's our civic duty to get involved in the elections. So we're educating. This is me educating you guys. For example, we do it online, we do it in person. We have a national summit every year. That's where a lot of those clips were from. Our national summit we had in Houston back in April. Researching the veracity of the voter rolls. So I'm going to show you a little bit, give you a little peek at what that looks like. That program that we've developed to help you access your database. Training and support polling place volunteers. Talk about how we help you do that. Document our observations along the way. That's a big part of what we do, because then we take the things that we document to our election officials and to our state legislature to get changes in. So we're hoping that some of the things we were able to work with poll workers in Wisconsin, for example, can be utilized to support changes in their system. We'd love to get them to eliminate same-day registration if they're not going to. We want tighter restrictions on the identification being accepted. There was a lot of, it was very loosey-goosey, shall we say, where it's like, well, I guess that'll work. And they were not really following the rules. So even if you have stringent laws and guidelines, if they're not being followed at the polling location, what good do they do? Say you institute photo ID. Well, what if the poll worker doesn't really check those IDs? This isn't helping you. So for whatever reason, because they don't want to, because they think it's not necessary, because they think it's restricting people, or because they want to skew the vote a certain way. So we use those findings to follow up. So I'm going to focus again on number 2 and 3 here on this list. I need one of those bigger things. That would be great. So researching the voter rolls. That's one of the things that we do. So we have fortunately had somebody work with us who is providing to us the voter rolls for each state around the country. We're getting them, we're requesting certain ones. Because we're getting them provided to us at no charge, we can't be too demanding about the speed, and that's why, disappointingly, Missouri is now the next one in the queue that we've been asking for. We were supposed to have already gotten it. We haven't yet. It's still it'll be the next one that goes up online. But we are able to upload those databases with all those voters. It's a huge database for each state. Missouri has about 4.1 odd million voters, so that's a big list. And we will get that uploaded as soon as we possibly can. The other piece that goes with that is a program that we've designed to help you efficiently go through that database. So we analyze the rolls. We're looking for certain things that are red flags that will tell us that this is a duplicate voter, or somebody registered at an empty lot, or 50 people at one spot. And when we want to remove the temptation for fraud, because is every duplicate voter, is that automatically fraud? Say you used to live in Texas, you were registered, you moved to Missouri, you registered here. Is your intent to commit voter fraud? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. If we can track both those and see you voted in both places, that's a problem. It's not always, but it's an opportunity. Every ineligible person on a list, whether it's a duplicate, whether it's somebody who's not eligible to vote in that district, whether it's somebody who's deceased, that is an opportunity. That's sort of like a blank check, that if somebody is willing to forge it, can be an opportunity for a fraudulent vote. And believe me, there are people who know that, who know how to hunt out those recently deceased who are probably still on the rolls and cast votes for them, that know that they can vote across straight lines and they won't get caught. So every duplicate voter is not automatically fraud, but it's an opportunity. So we want to remove that opportunity, remove that temptation, and clean up the voter rolls. So if you think it's not a problem, that's small, isn't it? A recent Pew study earlier this year showed that more than 24 million voter registration records, and that's like 1 in 8, are problematic. They're inaccurate, they're out of date, they're duplicates. And nearly 2.8 million registered in more than one state. Again, are all 2.8 million voting in both places cheating the system? No, but some of them are, and unless we're cross-checking, which most states are not, we don't know. So we want to clean those up. And about 1.8 million registered voters are deceased. So states are not doing their job of taking these people off the voter rolls when they're no longer eligible. Why? Because what happens when you try to clean up your voter rolls? Anyone from Florida? DOJ comes after you and says, stop that, you're trying to disenfranchise people. So out of fear of being sued for taking people off the rolls, a lot of states they don't want to touch it. They're like, well, nobody's going to vote for that dead person, right? It's not really a big deal if they're still on the rolls. Well, it is a big deal. It also skews your turnout numbers, right? If 50% of your voters aren't even real voters anymore, then your turnout numbers always look low. You know what? Those people are never going to vote. They're not alive. Hopefully, because they're not alive anymore. So it skews your numbers in a lot of ways, and again, it's an opening for fraud to happen. So we want to clean that up. So how are we going to do that? Well, here's a look see of what the screen looks like with our little tool that overlays and works with your state database. So what we offer, part of our tool set that we offer to people is online training. So when you sign up for True the Vote at www.truethevote.org, which you'll see on every piece of paper that I've handed you, then you have access to our online training programs. One of those online trainings is Research Database, which means researching your voter registration roll database. So when your database is uploaded and you've taken our online training program, you get a password to log into your county's voter rolls. Because remember, election laws are statewide, elections happen on a countywide basis. The voter rolls are kept county by county and then aggregated at the state level. So if you're in St. Louis County, for example, you take the training, you sign up, you'll start reviewing the St. Louis County voter rolls. So this is the interface that lets you access other information. For example, the appraisal district, the tax assessor, that's what we call them in our state. So the appraisal district, so you can check where there are multiple voters, and that is one of the first things that we work through, is the multiple voters at a single location. So it's going to look for those places where there are 10, 20, 50, 100 people at the same location. Now, where might there be 100 people at the same location and it's okay? Nursing homes. But guess what? Guess what you find on a lot of the nursing homes? Yeah. So it's a red flag that is going to direct you to a possibly problematic registration, because 4.1 million, you can't just start with the A's. you need a system. And so we've got software that gives you a systematic approach, and it's going to automatically pull up those most problematic, it's kind of pre-sorted, and it's putting the biggest problem ones in front of your face first. So you can look in those. And so I'm not going to try to give you the training, but the training will tell you how to sort through and look through. And if you identify those red flags, like you can match that to a death record, it's like, oh, okay, 127-year-old, Maybell, probably, yeah. So it's a red flag. And then we train individuals in each county to be the liaison with your county registrar, so that your findings are reported to that person, they aggregate them, do a second little checkity check, and then that information is sent to your county registrar with an official little letter that our system generates that says, we have identified these 20 voters as potentially no longer eligible to be registered for the various reasons. So it gives their name, their registration ID number, and the reason, whether it's deceased or whether you think they've moved or whether you found them in there 3 different times. And it puts it on the county now for them to follow up. So what we're doing is we're not trying to bust the county's chops. We understand their time and resources are limited. We want to be partners, helpful citizen volunteers, helping them do the job that they're supposed to do to keep those voter rolls clean, right? So we as volunteers do not have the power to fuck somebody off the rolls. That's what they're trying to imply, like, you're just taking people right off the rolls willy-nilly. We are just providing the information to the county to help them, to focus their time and attention on these red flags. So again, it's a lot of voters to sit through, over 4 million. Can we make a dent? Can we make a difference? Absolutely yes. And the reason why is because there's sort of this 70-30 rule. That's a common ratio, isn't it? Somebody else is talking about an 80-20 rule, but it's kind of, so about 70% of your problem people are going to be concentrated at about 30% of the registration addresses. In other words, those multiples, for example. So you're not going to have to go through 100% of these registrations. The problems are going to be concentrated, and so it's very much doable to have an effect. So again, we've got a strategy for targeting the most problematic registrations, and a follow-up strategy to report the information to the correct people and follow to make sure that action is taken. So you could get those. That's public information. Remember, voter records are public information. But again, what are you going to do? Start with the A's? Start looking. It's hard. So yes, ma'am.
About how long, just ballpark, does it take to sit through the training on your site?
The training for this particular module, I believe, runs between an hour and a half to maybe 2 hours because it's detailed. I know they just recorded it, and I don't know exactly how long it. That usually it has some Q&A in it. So we've been doing these trainings live, and kind of like conference call style, and everybody dials in, and you're seeing on the screen, and that gives that opportunity for interaction. We love the opportunity for interaction, but unfortunately, if everybody can't log on at 6 p.m. Central Time on Thursday night, oh, too bad for you. So we're making it more accessible. It will be on demand. So we've pre-recorded it. What that means you don't have is the opportunity to ask a live question. Doesn't mean you can't email questions, but so some of that time, I don't know what it shrank into with that pre-recorded without the Q&A. But again, they do go through a lot of detail. The nice thing with it being on demand, you can watch it again if you need a little refresher. And again, it's going to give you all the information and the tools that you need to get going. Again, let me emphasize, and I'm sorry to say, I was really hoping I would be able to say, woohoo, Missouri is up. But the Missouri voter rolls are the next one on the list to be uploaded. But in the meantime, you need to do the training anyway, so if you were to sign up and then get the training, then at that point, within hopefully the next few weeks, that database will become available to us and be uploaded for you to access. And the instructions for accessing it is via our website. You can do it any time of day or night for as short or long a period as you like. And again, every little bit helps. And again, you get faster at it as you do it more, and you can start knocking these out really quickly. Again, because is every registration record going to be fraudulent?
No.
Heck no, most of them are not. Yay! But again, it takes a lot of looking. It's kind of like kissing a lot of frogs to get the prince, only I guess it's seeing a lot of princes to find the frog. I don't know, it's sort of an opposite. That didn't quite work, but you get the idea. So again, any other questions on this portion of the research database portion of the True the Vote module? Again, you would sign up as a volunteer. You would have access to that online training if this is an activity you chose to pursue. And then again, you put as much time into it as you have at your convenience to do this research. Yes.
If someone is involved, like they're registered in 2 different places, like I suspect my brother is, are they ever contacted to tell them to straighten out their vote?
Well, again, it depends on the efficiency of your county registrar, how they do that. If you flag them, again, if they're in 2 different counties in the state, or 2 different addresses even in the same county, they've got multiples within the same state, you know, you're reporting that up to those registrars. Yes, they get contacted by that registrar. Once we get our databases up, we are going to work on cross-state checking to look for those people that are registered in more than one state. So that's a bigger process. Did you have a question?
How will we be notified when the database for Missouri is done?
I will let John know, and he will be very excited to let you know, because he will be, he will be thrilled. So, yes.
St. Louis County and St. Louis City have a separate voter database of inactive voters. They will contact the inactive voters on a regular basis and ask those people to please let them know if they're still living here, if their address has changed, whatever. But a lot of people don't respond, so the election authorities never find out if those people are off the rolls, and they leave them on the rolls for at least 10 years. If they have not voted for 10 years, then they'll drop off.
Yeah, federal law requires if those people do not vote in 2 consecutive federal election cycles, so that's 2 two-year cycles, so it's congressional elections every 2 years, then they may be dropped. A lot of states try to pad in more extra time so they don't get hassled by DOJ. So if you say you vote on election day and you move the next day and you don't tell the county, well, almost 2 years goes by before your next mailing cycle, and that comes back to them. Then they say, hey, did you move? And of course it comes back because you did. And so 2 more election cycles. So normally it's like 6 years would be enough time, but a lot of states have dragged it out to 8 or 10. As Frida said, apparently St. Louis County, it's like they just don't want to do it because they don't want to be accused of knocking eligible people off the rolls. And I will tell you what I learned in Texas. Another reason they're not in a hurry to knock people off the voter rolls, there's actually a financial reimbursement that each county gets on a per voter basis. It's sort of a state reimbursement to cover your administrative expenses for maintaining the registrations. So if you trim down your list, you've also trimmed down your budget that you get from the Secretary of State slush funds. So that you think, well, yeah. So you're basically rewarding ineligible voters. So.
Is there still a problem? Yeah, I know ACAR is gone, but they're is there still a problem with them?
Yes, I will tell you, they've taken a different tactic. Now they're just suing everybody right and left. So here's what Acorn is still out there. They are not trying to massively register in the same way that they did, and in some cases they're being shut down, which is why they're suing. Florida, for example, Texas did the same thing. We passed some regulation on people who do registration. We passed the law in Texas. True the Vote, our sister organization, King Street Patriots, which is a 501c4, which is allowed to advocate on issues. Based on what we learned through our True the Vote activities, we recommended and got this law filed and passed to require people who do voter registration to be Texas residents. Because we don't want these out-of-state groups sweeping in, and they're not trained, they don't know the law, they're just trying to collect their money, get a bunch of names in the system. So we said, well, this is a pretty simple one. We want you to be, this is Texas, we want you to be a Texan. This is a community thing. And, oh, we are being sued, of course. That was in court, too. The Florida law is to tighten up the voter registration drive. That one's in court. So they're suing. They're also, what their new strategy is they're using Section 7 of the NVRA, the National Voter Registration Act, which requires states to offer people that come in to welfare offices to apply for benefits. In each and every one of those places that a person goes in to apply for those benefits, you're supposed to offer them a voter registration card, which they may accept or decline. Well, they decided the numbers the participation numbers are low, so therefore it must mean that the states aren't doing their jobs, that they're somehow not really offering it. So what they're really trying to do is make it automatic. They want people to be automatically registered, you know, when they sign up. And of course, what will happen if you go to 2 or 3 different offices with 2 or 3 different benefits? You get registered 2 or 3 different times. This is it. So it's a new strategy. They have sued. They got a settlement in Georgia. They won in Louisiana. They're suing Pennsylvania, Arkansas, Nevada. They've got these NVRA Section 7 lawsuits all over the country. And they're trying to gin up, boost up the voter rolls through the courts this year instead of by massive acorn, on the ground registry, because that's very labor intensive, and they got caught. So new strategy. That's what you do. You do something different so they don't catch on to you.
I had a question. This is designed for volunteers to work, but could county registrar or county clerk actually employ this use it?
That's an interesting question. I would hope that they would have a system in place already that they're using. We're hoping that we're supplementing what they do, but maybe not.
Well, as a supplement.
Which were in St. Charles that had a problem with acorn, and they came in with a whole bunch of, this when I first got, a whole bunch of registrations. They put his office gals to work on it, and not one of them were legitimate. But my concern is how many other what do you call it, commissioners or just let all those go through. And how many
that was the strategy to avoid claims of disenfranchisement. The strategy, the Clower-Piven overwhelm the system strategy, was to get all these registrations, bogus or not, and then dump them all at once a few days before the registration deadline, knowing that the county could not go through them all to verify them, and that they would have to err on the side of caution and put them all in the system and allow them to vote and check on them later. Well, guess what happened when Harris County checked on them later? And we're trying to chuck out a lot of them that were invalid. Oh, now you're trying to disenfranchise people. You're trying to, because taking them off, once they're on, taking them off is hard. It's tricky. There's laws involved. And so they're trying to say, well, you're just rejecting only certain ones. And even though we don't register by party in Texas, they were trying to say, well, you're picking certain zip codes or whatever where you think they're more one party or the other. So the Texas Democrat Party sued our county registrar, and so we have a very tough time rejecting all those. We had 2 election cycles of acorn, thousands and thousands of invalid registrations that we're having a hard time getting off. But at least we've got a system. We're coming in and approaching them one by one, trying to knock them back off. Maybe one more question on registration. I want to move on to the poll watching portion as well.
Would you just mention how the Section 8 provision speeds up this 6-year process and takes people into a suspense status after with the postcard going out? And I don't think you covered that, did you?
No, I did not yet. Section 8 of the NVRA was supposed to be balanced. The National Voter Registration Act, aka Motor Voter. Bill Clinton signed that into law. His very first act as president. On stage with him were Clower and Piven, the authors of this overwhelm the system. The idea of Motor Voter was to overwhelm the system. The balance, the reason it got passed, and when you got people voting for it, the balance was supposed to be Section 8 that allowed for this regular maintenance of the voter rolls to pull these people off. So what was supposed to be rules for timely eliminating these ineligible people, especially those that move, now it's been turned around and used, again, kind of as against people who want to try to take people off the rolls. But again, elections are it's a two-year federal cycle, and so you know, the registration cards are mailed every 2 years. And so if you're, assuming you don't advise your authorities, but if you move, again, then the postcard goes out, the mailing goes out. We were talking about that cycle. That initiates that 2 federal election cycle process. So again, that can be, you know, when it first bounces back, then they have to mail and wait for it to come back. Then they have to put you on the suspense or the inactive list, whatever your state calls it. Again, you sit there for 2 election cycles, and if you don't come in and vote in that jurisdiction, then they can take you off the list. But there's all kinds of, again, they want to jump in. Did you have more to add to that?
Well, when we find the flag through the data research and we flag them, that moves up, that triggers the postcard going out to get people to come in and prove that they're legitimate, if I understand it correctly.
Right, and remember that cycle is just for people who have moved, who have changed their jurisdiction. Because remember, where you live, it determines where you're eligible to vote. Just, you know, you can't move, you know, to Kentucky and still vote. It's where you live. You can say you still live here, but you can only vote in one place. And this is why the fight with the college students is so funny. They want to vote everywhere. They want to vote wherever they are on election day. They're like, yeah, if it's summer, if I'm home, I want to vote. I want to go in at all. You're trying to take away my vote. It's like, no, we're trying to make you pick. You have to pick one place as your residence where you're allowed to vote. Now, if you die, you're out of there as soon as it's determined you're dead. If it's found out that you're not really a citizen, you're out of there. If you've got 3 or 4 registrations, those are out of there. The Section 8 and the waiting period of the mailing and all the postcard thing, that applies to people who move. So they're trying not to say, well, you know, I didn't get my mail or whatever, and you took me off the list. Of course, what they never say is that you can instantly go back and just register, fill out another postcard, and you're registered again. It's not like you're off the list and you're never allowed to vote ever again. You just have to maybe, you know, refill out a postcard to make sure you stay on the list. But I want to move on to poll working, because this was one element, and a lot of people who say, oh, I don't want to stand at the polls on election day, I don't like that, but hey, I can work at night on weekends and do some of this voter roll stuff. Now, if you are willing to take the day off and be at the polls on election day, as you heard Christian Adams say, don't just sit on your couch and watch the results and hope there's no shenanigans. Get out, vote early, and then be in those polls on election day. You are the eyes on. You'll know what happened because you saw it. You were part of it. Now, preferably, we would love everybody to be an election worker, right? Because you're in charge of the process there. And again, our polls chronically understaffed, often poorly trained, especially if they're scrambling at the last minute to get people. They don't really have time to train them, and that just leads to chaos at the polls. And chaos doesn't give you good results. Also, you get a lack of balance at the polls. I know Frida mentioned that St. Louis especially has problems getting enough workers, and enough maybe workers from a particular party, because although true the vote is nonpartisan, free and fair elections are nonpartisan, elections, partisan. That by definition, they're a contest between 2 sides. So we work you know, in conjunction with the parties, because they're the ones who are allowed to assign that list of names who becomes poll workers, and they're the ones that are allowed to designate challengers. So we're working with them. It doesn't mean we're shills for the party or we're secretly partisan or whatever, but it's a partisan. The process itself is partisan. If there's only one side, there wouldn't be an election, right? But we are nonpartisan workers, but working within that system. So when you have, if you're understaffed, poorly trained, or only one side is represented, you've just opened up the opportunities for either mistakes or outright fraud. So the solution to that, easy. Be an election worker. Sign up. You sign up through your counties. You volunteer. You get on that list. Then you get trained. Your counties will offer you training, but True the Vote offers additional training. We want you to be better trained than just what your county tells you. Yeah, the county's going to tell you when to open up your location, how to run your machinery. We want you to be thinking more about what you're looking for as a term, in terms of, you know, again, when they're mobbing the polls with extra people. What happens when that busload comes off and that, you know, they're getting rowdy and they don't want to show you the documentation and they say, I don't have to do that. You know, the kind of the shenanigans that you're going to see, the problems that you may run into with the other election workers who may say, well, we always do it this way. We want to arm you with more knowledge, with to be prepared in advance, and we even offer. These are great things. This is like one of the tools that we offer. It's our little flip chart. This one is for our judges. This is one of our early iterations. We've got them a little nicer, but it's all the rules. It's all the election laws. So you can quote when your counterpart says, "Oh, we don't do it that way. We don't really have to make them sign that book." We can say, "Well, you know, Section 61.08 of the code says that they must sign, and the penalty for failure to do so is a Class A misdemeanor." That always helps when you have that behind it. So, oh, by the way, so you have your little handy guide. You know, you're better trained than the average bear. And what we found is a lot of times by the end of election day, the other workers are going, can I look at that? That's pretty handy. I didn't know. So we try to give you more tools than just what your county or state will offer. There you are. You are ensuring election integrity. You are doing it. You don't have to hope somebody else is doing it. You don't have to worry about it. You're there. You're doing it. So hopefully you're an election worker. Here's our little thing we have on the balance of the polls. So you've got, again, it's a partisan election. You've got a Democrat and a Republican and maybe some other parties on there. The way that Missouri law says, you have to have a minimum of 2 judges for each party at each poll. They like more. The last thing I saw, they were trying to get double that, 8 at each poll. So you've got a supervisory judge. That's the top dog. That's who you want to be if you can. If you can get on the list and they pick you, woohoo! If not, you can be the other judge. If you don't get a judge position, be a challenger. And again, what happens if one side of that is out of balance? There's no challenger here. Or, oh, there's no judges, nobody volunteered to be a judge. What happens to that balance? It's out of balance. So we want to make sure we have enough people that have volunteered, that are prepared to take that day off, that are well-trained, standing by, and ready to work at the polls. And if I understand Missouri clerkly, and maybe Frida can help me with this one, that if they don't, if you don't have the balance, they want that balance, 2 and 2. But you know what always happens as election day comes up? They find out they've got holes or people dropped out. And they're scrambling, they're desperate. They're allowed to appoint the, quote, the non-affiliated people. So what you want to do in your counties is have some extras. You want people trained up, ready, willing, and able to step in. And then when the county starts to panic, you call them up and they say, I have a dozen trained people who are ready and willing to work if you need them. Beauty. If not, those people are in a perfect position to act as a well-informed challenger. So we provide the support, the training for the people that are going to be election workers and poll watchers first on the ground. Then we also support the people that we want to put in directing these activities at the county level. So gathering up. So we can train everybody up, but then what do? Where do you go? What if you train 100 people and they all go to the same poll? Is that really very efficient? No. So we try to add that extra layer of logistics and mobilization, how to kind of organize the people within your county so that you're sending them out. We like to send out, again, people, if we can have a judge and a challenger, that's perfect. We got a team going on. But so you can spread throughout the county, make sure everybody has a certificate of appointment so that you're raring to go. That you're well trained, that you have your quick reference. We have these for poll watchers as well. What we also provide for our poll watchers is what we call an incident report. So we train you how to take good, what we call evidentiary quality notes at the polls on election day, so that when there are shenanigans, it's documented. You can take this to your county elections authority. You can take this to your attorney general. You can take it to your state legislature. We did, and it provided solid evidence for reasons that things needed to be changed. It wasn't just, well, somebody said, or I thought I saw. It's like you have dates, times, names. This is exactly what happened, and it's a powerful tool. So we don't, again, what we do doesn't just end on election day. So we're trying to provide that support. We train. the county leaders, we call them, the organizers, and John will be more than happy to talk to you more about being a county leader. So we set those relationships with the officials, the county officials, the party officials that are working this process, that are working the elections, that are assigning the people that get appointed as challengers. And we set up election day command centers so that when you see a problem, you've quoted the law and they're still not following it, what do you do? Yeah, he wants you to take notes, but you just say, darn it. Wish that didn't happen. No, you want to call somebody. So rather than have you scramble to do it, what we give you is one central command center number where we have trained volunteers standing by, which I have at least one election attorney on board. We've got all the numbers, so you say, hey, I'm in precinct 1, 2, 3, and this is going on. We say, go back and keep watching, take notes. We call the county, we call the person that needs to be called, and tell them you call that judge or you get out there, whatever needs to be done. So we like to have, again, that resource where you see you're not just out there alone hoping nothing bad happens. You can get it reported and get action taken. So and then again, reporting that afterwards to election authorities or to the legal authorities so that action is taken after the fact, and that next election cycle these same things don't keep happening. So I'm going to give you a quick look at Missouri because we're running out of time, and then you can ask some questions. And then this little handout, we just made some notes so I can apply True the Vote to your state, and I use St. Louis County as a little example too. So let's just look at Missouri. 4.1 million registered voters, that's the 2010 number. This all came from your Secretary of State's website. I know we all love Robin Carnahan, she's a lovely woman. But I believe her data is census data, so I know it's always right. 114 counties to cover in Missouri, right? Counties with more registered voters than voting age population. That's one of the things referenced in the video. One of the things that True the Vote is working with Judicial Watch. We're going to courts too, baby. You can play this game. We are suing all the states that are not maintaining their voter rolls. And if you have more than 100% registered voters, that's a problem. I don't have to, 99, 98, that's pretty questionable, but if it's more than 100%, we know darn well there's people in there who shouldn't be, right? So, again, so Missouri has 6 counties that have, and St. Louis County and St. Louis City are such a mess, it's hard to even figure that one out. But you see these other counties, they have more registered voters than voting age population. So something's wrong.
Who are those?
City of St. Louis, Reynolds, Putnam, Shelby, Butler, and Clark. Got any bells?
I didn't get that one.
They're up there. I get it later.
So those are your counties.
Need a lot.
Yeah. You got Howard City.
St. Louis County's not down there, or were we taking all?
No, St. Louis County is not down there, but again, some of this is because the numbers, there's weird record keeping between the city and the county, and
It's two separate
yeah. So the percentages, the numbers that we have don't show St. Louis County as being over 100%, but that doesn't mean they're all, well, the ones that are on there are all accurate. So a little summary of your laws on poll workers, the supervisory and election judges. See, 2 and 2 is the minimum. Here's the qualifications to be a judge. And challengers and watchers, it's kind of the same qualifications. Again, these are designated by the county political parties. Doesn't mean we're partisan, but that's who gets the designated challenger. So you have to offer your services to one of those parties.
And they have to register ahead of time, don't they? You can't just show up at the polls.
Correct. And so that's on you. You have to be appointed. That's what I'm saying. And the person doing that appointing is the county party.
Committee chairman.
So this is why you have to know these people. It doesn't mean you love them or are necessarily voting for them. Maybe you may not. This says that you are asking them to designate you, because only the Democrat chairman or the Republican chairman has the authority to designate you to go in and be a challenger on their behalf. Using St. Louis County as an example, and again, this is how True the Vote devolves down to we have a statewide kind of overview, and then we get to a county by county level, because each county has their own election board, or city in some cases. Each county has its own voter rolls. So if you're in St. Louis County, for example, you've got 748,000 registered voters. That's a lot. That's
600 voting places.
Yeah, well, my last data said 450. Are we up to 600 after the?
It depends on the election. That means
Okay.
they need 5,000 poll workers.
Yeah, so
A
yeah.
lot of people.
So if we do the math, you can see.
Kathy has a question.
Yes.
Are applications available to become poll workers? For instance, if you were hosting a party for the Game Changer and you had, 5 or 10 people, could I have applications to become poll workers there for those individuals?
You would have to talk to your county election board because they have it online. Each county website has an online form for fill in this information if you want to be a poll worker. I don't know that they offer it in print. I'm afraid to say that.
You can give them the sign-up sheet. You know, that little card?
The card, right, she handed out.
You can hand out to the people that show up at your little movies.
Okay.
Or if you've got that internet connection, call up the website and say, hey, log in right here. And it's done.
Yes.
Done.
Don't get confused on this program for watching the movies is to get people registered to vote. And you can't be a poll observer unless you're a registered voter.
Yeah, one of the
So
qualifications is to
there's
be a
some
registered
sequence.
voter. So
And
that's
on
what
the bottom
If
of
they
the
get
voter
concerned, they can get involved that way.
registration form is a square that says, I would like to be a registered voter.
Okay, so
Or
you do
there
it
are
all at the same time.
registration forms back there.
Okay, so every state is
And
going to
see,
see
that I know that you can have a stack of registration to get people registered.
Yeah.
I know you can do that, and that's why I asked.
Oh, that's great that your
the
state
question.
form has that, because why do they do it? Because they're desperate for election workers. They're desperate, so don't let it be somebody else. Don't let it be some Acorn people. They're signing their people up right and left. You know it. They're already on that site. You have to have that balance at the polls. You want honest, civic-minded people being those election workers. Because again, 450, apparently a conservative number. I guess I pulled that from the primary, or the last election that went around. So if you had 450 polling locations in your county, that would mean if you had that minimum of 4 judges per location, 2 and 2, can we do the math? 450 times 4, look, I did it for you. 1,800 would be the minimum if we're going to max out at 8, 3,600 in one county. So you need 3,600. Well, you're not going to fill every single position, but that's how many bodies they need. How many volunteers can you gin up to fill some of those positions? Same thing with challengers. You get one, each party gets to have 1 at each poll. 450 polling locations, that's 900 bodies deployed to be watching. How many can you turn out and get deployed to as many of those locations as possible? That's what your county leader in the Truth the Vote model will help you do. You will get signed up and get trained. Your leader will help you do the correct paperwork to get assigned and deploy you so you don't train 450 people and they all go to the same polling location, for example. Yes, ma'am, please.
I get the excuse, but I'm working. I don't have time to work at polls. What is a good?
Take a vacation day.
Thank you.
Yes.
And they're legally required in Missouri law to let you off work. Maybe not paid vacation, but they cannot make you work on election day.
Gotcha. So there you go. If there's anything worth a vacation day, it's saving your country and free and fair elections, for heaven's sake. Again, Christian Adams says it over and over. If you're sitting at home on your couch on election day, you're not doing all you could have done. And so you have only yourself to blame if you don't like the results and you're hearing about all the shenanigans. You got to be there. It is worth it. Again, get all your like-minded, civic-minded friends, family, colleagues, co-workers, because if it's not you, it's going to be someone else they're going to stick in that spot at the last minute. And maybe there's not going to be balance at the polls. Maybe they're not going to be honest people. It needs to be honest, well-trained people. So, we can do it. We can safeguard election integrity in Missouri. We just need you. We just need those numbers. You sign up, truthevote.org. Again, back to the little orange sheet. This is the summary of steps 1, 2, 3. You just go on the website. I have my iPad here today, so if during lunch or later on, with the Wi-Fi here, you can go right on and you can fill this little online form out today if you want to, see what it looks like. Then you'll be connected with the Truth the Vote leaders in your area. All of you in Missouri will get John will be more than happy to hear from you and talk to you more about what's involved. If you're in a county that already has a leader, Frida. You're fortunate if you're in St. Louis because you get Frida. We are looking for more volunteers to fill those county leader positions. So hopefully I explained a little bit of what you would do in that leader role. You would just kind of help coordinate all those volunteers. It's important that we have that. And again, online, once you're in the system, You can sign up for the volunteer training, whether you want to sign up to learn how to do the voter roll research, whether you want to sign up to learn how to become an election worker or a poll watcher. Again, whether you want to take on more of a challenge and be a county leader, all great. So this is our tagline. Elections aren't truly fair, we're not truly free. We've got to have those free and fair elections. Otherwise, our representative government means nothing because those aren't really the representatives that we elect. We didn't elect them. I think I've overplayed my time for questions here. The call to action, please, 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 give it a look. Sign up, see what it's about. Encourage, again, your like-minded friends, again, whether it's church members, Tea Party groups, nonpartisan groups, this is a great activity because it's a nonpartisan activity. And thank you so much for your time. I think we need to move on to lunch, but I'll be hanging around so you can come up and ask me questions.
I have a few comments.